Hey everyone, and welcome. Have you ever thought about the hidden world that's powering, well, everything alive? Today, that's exactly where we're going. We're diving deep into the building blocks of life itself, the amazing cell. Seriously, what if you could just zoom in? I mean, way in, past your skin, past your tissues, all the way down to a single tiny building block of you. What would you even find down there? Well, you'd find the place where it all begins, this incredible, complex little machine that is the fundamental unit of all life. And this is such a perfect way to think about it. You know how you can build this massive, intricate Lego castle from thousands of little bricks? Life is kind of the same deal. Every single living thing, I don't care if it's a tiny bacterium or a massive blue whale, is built from these small, individual units. It's like the most basic rule in life's instruction manual. All right, so let's get into the nitty-gritty. What does it really mean when we say a cell is life's fundamental building block? Okay, we've all probably heard the textbook definition, the basic unit of structure and function. But let's really break that down. Structure is easy, right? It's the physical stuff. But function, that's the mind-blowing part. A cell isn't just the smallest piece of you, it's the smallest thing that can actually be called alive on its own. It's not just a brick, it's a brick that's running 1,000 different computer programs at once to keep the whole castle going. And this brings up a huge misconception. A lot of people get stuck thinking that cells are just, well, little empty boxes. Just passive bricks that give us our shape. But if you stop there, you're missing the entire story. Because cells are not empty boxes. A much, much better way to think about them is as these incredibly busy little factories. Seriously, each one is taking in fuel, producing energy, making products, and even handling its own trash. They're the engines, not just the walls. And the scale here is just wow. Over 30 trillion. That's how many of these tiny factories are humming away inside the average person right now. It's not just a collection of factories, it's a whole civilization of them, all working together to make, well, to make you. So, the basic idea of a cell factory is pretty universal. But, evolution likes to get creative. So let's look at the two big models you see out there, plant cells and animal cells. When you put them side by side, the biggest differences really boil down to two things, how they're built and how they eat. Animal cells are pretty flexible. They're kind of squishy, which is great for moving around. But plants, they needed to stand up tall without a skeleton. So they developed this really rigid outer layer called a cell wall. And then there's the food. Animals like us have to go out and find food. Plants, though, they figured out how to make their own. Let's zoom in even further and look at the actual machinery inside these factories, the little organs, or organelles. Both plant and animal cells have a control center, the nucleus, and power plants called mitochondria. But plants have a couple of exclusive upgrades. We already mentioned that super tough cell wall. But they also have these amazing little solar panels called chloroplasts. And that is the game changer. It's what lets a plant do the magic trick of photosynthesis, literally building itself using nothing but sunlight and air. So you have to wonder, how on earth did we even find out about any of this? I mean, for almost all of human history, this entire microscopic universe was completely invisible. It's a pretty cool story, actually. It all started back in 1665 with a guy named Robert Hooke. He was looking at a super thin slice of cork under one of the first microscopes, and what he saw were all these tiny boxy structures. They reminded him of the small rooms in a monastery, which were called cells. And just like that, the name stuck. It sounds simple, but that one observation completely changed everything. It proved that life wasn't just some magical blob. It was built from actual individual parts. All right. So we've looked at what cells do, how they're built, and even how we discover them. But let's pull back to the big picture. Why does any of this matter? Why is it so important to understand these tiny little things? So here's the main takeaway. Life isn't just made of cells. Life is made by cells. They're the builders and the building blocks. Everything about a living thing, how a tree stands tall, how an animal can run, it all comes down to what their cells are doing. And that right there is why cells are the absolute foundation of biology and medicine. If you want to understand life or health or disease, you have to start here. So next time you look at a tree or your pet or even just your own hand, try to remember what's really going on. You're seeing the result of trillions of these tiny ancient powerhouses, all working together in this incredibly complex dance. Every living thing you see is just the grand performance of what's happening inside those cells. And believe me, we've barely even scratched the surface today.
The world inside a single cell is more complex and amazing than you can imagine. So what does this make you wonder? What other questions pop into your head about these tiny powerhouses? Because the journey inside has really only just begun.